Thank you very much. I'd be very grateful for your comments, suggestions, objections, ideas, and I hope I haven't gone over the time that would have been allotted to me. Thank you. I might say that this map has been referred to by some as Pipelineistan. You know, we ask ourselves, well, now why is the United States in Afghanistan? And some of you might have heard of the TAPI pipeline, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline. And this is one that in the Lisbon conference, November 19th, 2010, NATO in their conference was, I think, greatly cheered because the Asia Development Bank said, okay, count us in. We will bankroll the TAPI pipeline. And so it's a huge undertaking. You see Turkmenistan across Afghanistan, through Pakistan, over to India. And then this one is the Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline. This one is called the Peace Pipeline. There are tremendous reserves of natural gas and fossil fuels that the world needs for energy. And of course, China is part of the world equation that wants a great deal of that energy resource as well. And some would suggest that the United States may be in a Cold War with China, and that one of the reasons for the United States wanting bases all across Afghanistan is to be able to have roadways and bases that would both squeeze Iran and Russia and China. So geopolitically, Afghanistan becomes a very, very important place. And I have to ask you to forgive me that I'm not managing to hit this hard enough. Casey? Sorry. But there was another map that I had shown you, and I think it was on, some of you might have taken a look at it before we started. It was actually created by a CIA analyst. And there we go. Yeah, thank you so much, Casey. This is a map on the left-hand side that shows the actual borders. This map is true. And you can see that Pakistan, and of course, what's the one Muslim country that has the nuclear bomb? Pakistan. It has a long border with Iran, and also shares a pretty long border with China. And so some have wondered if the United States would find national interest served if that border with China was cut off, if Afghanistan kind of arced over and cut off the northern part of Pakistan that borders with China, and if the Baluchi separatist movement were to create free Baluchistan, then you'd cut off the border between Iran and Pakistan. And what most surprised me is that although I'd seen this map in the New York Times, I think in 2006 or so it's not a new map. When I was in Pakistan, every single educated, English-speaking, affluent person knew about that map. And they said they expected that this would be their future in 25 years. So it's an important map to pay attention to. So, questions? Thank you. Could you say your name also?
Kathleen Robbins. You talked about the shared amnesia that we have in the United States about the war in Afghanistan, and less than 1 to 2% of the families in the U.S. are really affected by the war directly. I subscribe to the theory that one of the reasons that Vietnam stopped like it did is because of the draft, that because people were involved and students were required, males were required to sign up for the draft and exposed to that draft, that got them politically involved. And I wonder what your thoughts are about that and what your answer is to this collective amnesia that's going on. If not the draft, then what else would you suggest?
Well, I don't think I could manage to say that I want to see anyone recruited, trained, and sent to possibly be killed and possibly kill. I can't advocate that. I surely hear what you're saying, and I agree with the analysis. There's almost no price being paid. I've sometimes said, sure, reinstate the draft, start with people 45 and up. I also just read something kind of fanciful about orchestrating a draft so that only the privileged would be the ones who go and fight. So if the formulas got changed, but even so, but I still, myself, I'll never advocate training anybody to pick up a gun in any circumstance, anywhere, anytime. I think if the United States people could more directly feel the sorrow of war, now how would that ever happen? And, you know, it's interesting to me, I remember being right at this spot with so many of you in the same group years ago with the economic sanctions, and we were honestly puzzling over how it could be that Joan Benet Ramsey, the young child who'd been so badly abused by her parents, and she was a national figure, and she was in people's minds and in the news day after day. It's not true to say that United States people can't feel compassion, but our compassion is orchestrated and controlled so much by major mainstream media. I do wonder, though, if the social media, and here I'm, way out on a limb that might crack any moment, because what do I know? It took me 20 minutes to send a text message on the train ride down here. But social media might perhaps communicate realizations that Americans aren't used to getting, and that can't be filtered out as easily. Certainly we see that in Egypt, they just didn't know what hit them when the social media was so available to people in many different parts of Egypt and different cities clamored simultaneously. It's interesting to see what's happening in Wisconsin right now also. 30,000 people gathered. That's quite something. Or the story of Ray McGovern, a real peace activist with a former history with the CIA, being beaten and bloodied during a speech by Hillary Clinton on freedom of speech. And he stands up and silently just stands up and turns his back, and he was hauled out and beaten by Washington, D.C. police. That story went all over the internet, and it's got traction and it's sticking. So I'm just wondering if we might be in for more educational opportunities than we've been accustomed to. But you're certainly right. We're not seeing the body bags coming back into the home communities. And it's actually the smaller towns that I think sustain the greater loss in terms of where the soldiers come from. I would encourage all of you to visit a website called Our Journey to Smile and just get to know these Afghan Youth Peace Volunteers. They're an incredible lot, and they're very sturdy and